Hi, everybody.
Great. Here we go. Workshop number 3, Dr. Anani. Here we go. Yes, yes. All right,
Yes.
y'all. Y'all, we are on a road. Thank you for being on
hmm
the road with us, the road to residency. We are really excited to be bringing you this third webinar in our series called Road to Residency. We are the Tour for Diversity in Medicine. We are actually former SNMA and LMSA members who like to travel the country and help students along their path into medicine, dentistry, and pharmacy. But a couple of years ago, during the pandemic, we recognized that we needed to do a little bit more for our medical student friends as well, too. So we kind of expanded the focus of our programming with this Road to Residency series. And this is now the 4th year that we've been doing it. And we're pretty excited to help all of you who are graduating this year, who are really thinking about what that next step is, because it's not a natural and easy process. So hopefully you'll get pointers tonight. You got pointers these past 2 workshops. We were just bragging that my workshop with Dr. Clark this past Tuesday already had more views than Dr. Anani's and
On
Dr.
YouTube. On YouTube.
Okay, there we go. There we go. We still bigger. We still bigger. But tonight we are actually bringing you a different conversation. And I'm really excited about this one because I think we have a lot of pointers set for you guys that are going to be important for this year, because ERAS this year has changed, even with the way we named this webinar. I don't know how many different renditions we had of like what to call this thing, but we knew that we needed to go over some pretty critical information that maybe you got from your schools, but to be honest, is new to everyone, new to us as faculty, new to your programs, the ones you're considering, new to ERAS, and we want to make sure you guys can navigate it well. So anyway, that's my intro. As far as personal introductions, my name is Cameron Matthews. I'm one of the founders and a mentor on the Tour for Diversity in Medicine. I'm a family doc, and I'm located in Washington, D.C.
My name is Dr. Lavanani. I am also one of the members and mentors on the Tour for Diversity. I practice emergency medicine in the Nashville area, Springfield, Tennessee, to be specific, but I live in Nashville.
Love it. Love it. All right, we're going to jump in because we have absolutely tons of information.
Yeah.
But again, please take some notes, guys. Take some pictures. This video is going to be recorded on the YouTube channel, on SNMA's YouTube channel. Definitely come back to it to get all the details. But Temi, why don't we go ahead and share the slides? All right.
Yeah.
So Dr. Nani, I'm going to let you jump in.
All right. So, like any good presentation, everyone, this is our agenda. We're going to give you some background about why ERAS made some of these changes and the research on it. We're going to go over the supplemental application, a little asterisk right there. Then we're going to talk about the My Experiences section, how that changed, geographic preferences, signaling, which is everyone's like really big thing. And then one thing we wanted to do with this level of changes and this year being special, we wanted to leave time for open questions. So whether it's questions about this, someone missed some CV or personal statement questions you want to ask us, or prepping questions, we're going to have time at the end for just open questions. Again, here at T4D, we love to chat with the students. So now that we're not on the bus and not in the room, this is the closest we can get. Please drop comments in the chat. All right. We can see everything. If you put it on the YouTube or the Facebook page, anything you type comes to us. We will pause. We will read. We will get you your answers. All right. Let's move forward. So first and foremost, a little background in case people are just oblivious. ERAS is managed by the AAMC. Every word you're going to see on this slide was approved or taken from the AAMC. So if someone says, Dr. Nani, Dr. Matthews don't know what they're talking about, we got it straight from them. What we're going to add is our little spice and theories on top of what's on their website, but this is all from them. And yes, we are not in academic medicine ourselves. However, this was sent to our academic partners on the tour, academic partners outside the tour, and they were like, yep, this is all the info. So for the past 2 years, the AAMC has been doing research on ERAS and seeing how they can make it better and what they can do with it and figuring out what they can do. So they were actually submitting a supplemental application with ERAS the last 2 years and taking all that data. So the new change is, drum roll, there's no longer a supplemental application. They got rid of it. All of the content and data that they pulled from the supplementals, they basically said we are now going to incorporate into our main ERAS questions. So where you're going to see those changes reflected is the My Experience section, the geographic and setting preferences, and program signaling. This is to have a, quote, enhanced, research, and refined new ERAS starting June 2023. While that sounds very fancy, I'm sure all the students applying for the match this year is like, great, the year I'm going to do it, y'all change it. And the answer is yes. Welcome to medicine. Things are ever evolving.
And you've never, well, maybe some have, but the majority of you have never applied before. So you can't even look at this as changes. That's what's so frustrating.
Yep.
They're highlighting pieces, but you have nothing to compare it to. So that's where we really want to make sure we're emphasizing, especially these 3 sub-bullet points: experiences, geographic and setting preferences, and signaling. And we're going to go into them in detail.
Yes. And this is gonna, and for if anyone's watching this next year and you're applying to OB, sorry, you got a whole new application, but we'll get into that later.
Ooh, Lord. Yeah.
So 1, don't ever do what I had to do here. This slide is busy. You get chopped down anywhere else apart from doing it, but we wanted to have everything in one place. So if someone did want to screenshot this, this is there. All right. So back in the day, when us young doctors who are now teaching y'all were doing all of our ERASs, we could type in all of our personal community service experience ad nauseum. You could just have whatever you want written in there, and you could have 57 things that you did for extracurriculars, and people loved it because they can make their application look very, very long. Not anymore. With the new changes, you get 10 experiences flat. You have to look through everything you've done through 3.5, 4 years in med school and pick 10 things. Of those 10 things, you can have 3 meaningful experiences. And we'll get to that in a bit. But under your meaningful experiences, you get to add a little spice to that. You get longer word limits, longer character limits. But that means you only get 10 things to talk about and you get to pick your top 3. Hobbies are now integrated into this experience section. So this is straight from the AAMC again. Applicants can enhance or emphasize how a particular hobby or interest has contributed to their skill development or showcases their important qualities. So for me, I got to write everything I wanted down. And at the end, I got to tag on that I like to play video games and watch movies. But now I don't think I'd use that for one of my 10 things for my experiences unless
Please do not.
Yeah. Unless you for some reason directed a movie that won an Oscar or like a short film or documentary, bam, then you can do that. But if you just like playing the new Diablo and you went to watch the Mario movie yesterday like I did, you can't write that down no more.
So I want to emphasize this one point though, what you just read. That quote I think is so critical because it shouldn't just apply to hobbies. It should apply across all the experiences, right?
Yes.
Anything you list in these 10, it has to have contributed to your skill development or showcase an important quality. Guys, you have to be selective. Yes, we were all type A. Yes, we all did ridiculous number of experiences, but they are purposefully limiting it to 10 because those of us who are crazy used to list innumerable number ones. And we need to make sure that we are providing relevant information. So I think maybe in Q&A, or if you guys have confusion, let's talk about what we mean by skill development and showcasing important qualities, because sometimes it's a bit difficult for students to be able to highlight themselves, but that's pretty big. But apply that across all of your experiences.
And we got one question from future Dr. Keshanova is how I'll pronounce it. Hopefully I'm correct. Does it only have to be med school extracurriculars? What if you are non-trad and have significant clinical experiences and clinical research experiences before med school and publications? You choose. So that's the thing, right? If it's significant, yeah, you were out here on the cancer wards helping patients transition or on hospice. Yeah, that's a meaningful experience. That could be one of your top 10. You volunteered at a hospital and handed out blankets. What are you really writing about that? So the reason they made this change is apparently during their research, they actually asked applicants and PDs, like, what's a number that was really highlighting what you truly wanted to highlight? And 10 was that number. So you can write, again, whatever experience you want, and we'll highlight a few extra sections they have, but it's up to you to choose that. Like Dr. Matthews said, at the end, when we have time, we will take, y'all can write whatever you did in the chat and we'll tell you yes, yes, no, no, yes, yes. We will. So each experience, the applicant gets to provide a descriptive information, including position, right? So I volunteered at the hospital versus I was head volunteer at the hospital. Organization name, approximate start and end dates. That's very big. They want to see, all right, is this a one-time thing or did you do this for years? Frequency of participation. Did you do it once, twice, three times? Location and setting, again, hospital, street, back of the church, wherever it was done. Then when you're there, they have experience types. So research, volunteer, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Primary focus area, and then key characteristics that you get to put there as applicable. You don't have to put a key characteristic, but if there's something that changes or highlights your blanket handing out at hospital job versus other ones, you get to put it there. And then again, very briefly, applicants may briefly describe the experience's major activities, their responsibilities, and important context. Y'all, this is the hardest part. In 1,020 characters or fewer. All right, so let's take LMSA.
Let me Google how many words that is.
So don't use your SAT words on this one. Use the short ones. You got to get them in.
That is, I can't.
I mean, the words will change it, but you have to get them in. So you have to
gosh,
say what you did, your major activities.
Words.
It's nothing, right? So if you do SMA, you can't put your whole calendar of events. You got to put those highlights, what you did in those highlights, and some context. Again, that's for your normal ones. You do get extra characters for your meaningful experiences, but that's it. Future Dr. Green would like to know, would you recommend only listing things you've done for a long time? For example, I volunteered lobbying with legislators for patients only once, but feel odd putting something I've only done once. If that was impactful, right? Like there was unfortunately a shooting here in Nashville at Covenant, which is a local school.
I was in Nashville when that happened.
Yeah, that's absolutely crazy. Like half the city shut down. If I went and lobbied I'm not gonna say anything about him, Republican governor one time, and then after my lobby, a law got changed, I mean, I might write that down.
There we go.
Yeah. If I went impactful.
That's impactful.
Yes. Mm-hmm. If I went and talked to a politician for a couple hours and left and nothing ever happened from it, I would have to weigh if that talk outweighs my 2 years of SNMA work. And for me, it probably wouldn't.
Great example. I think the flip to that, though, what if it was a single event? Maybe lobbying is not a good example. Maybe it was, I don't know, some volunteer experience, although it's hard for me to think of one, but it could have been a single event where maybe it wasn't impactful as far as the reach of what you were doing, but perhaps it was impactful in your decision to choose the field that you're applying in. Mm-hmm. Perhaps it was impactful in your interest in doing particular part of type of research. Maybe it influenced you and gave you some experience towards a specific publication that you have. So the impactful doesn't need to be that you reached and, passed legislation and the like. But I mean, that was an excellent example, Dr. Nani. But I think you need to think about impact as far as, again, what it might have brought you as a skill set or a future decision. Now, you choosing your field, I admit you don't need to waste an experience, to be honest, on why you chose emergency medicine, because when you're going to describe that in the personal statement, and it can be a little bit more fleshed out. But if there's a single experience that is just unbelievably, I would say, unique, that you can describe some impact from, maybe. I think there's different judgment calls on that, and we can help you with that too.
And RD3, aka Dumevia Twebu, has a question. Do these experiences include research? Is that a separate category? I believe your research is now in your experiences. I think it is. I'll double check that, but I am pretty sure it's one of the descriptive types or experience types now that are in there, because they don't want people just, again, listing research and all you did was spend the summer and organize an Excel spreadsheet for someone. They didn't do anything. So that's one of the things.
Yep, keep going.
Thank you. All right, can you go to the next slide?
Yes, I can.
All right, so more about experiences here. So here are all the category types. Look at that. Experience type. Number 2, research. So yes, research is underneath there. There's a supplemental publications category, but as you see here for experience type, work, research, volunteer, they want to know if you did education, training, if you're in the military. Again, here your hobbies come in here. Again, if you're a Olympic fencer, all right, you can write that down. That sounds very big to me. Professional organizations is where your SNMA LMSA goes, teaching, mentoring. And then your focus areas for those experience types, the things you did. And then key characteristics. I learned ethical responsibility, empathy and compassion, teamwork and leadership, right? Because you're writing these experiences to say you gained something from them. So these are the things that people want to know that you gained.
Again, skill development and important qualities. This is an excellent list. And guys, do not be afraid to use those exact words because the categories there are pretty strong and unique. And it's incredibly helpful and probably helps programs decipher between applications.
Yes. Fissy points out there's a separate publications category. Excellent. So, you may not want to, unless your research changed your life, you may not want to use that experience slot of 10 things you have if you can list all your publications somewhere else. I would probably not. Again, unless it was very impactful. Again, stolen from the AAMC. We didn't make up these categories. You can double check that.
Please take a picture of this, y'all. It's on the AAMC. Please look at this and please use this as you're filling out your experiences.
Let's go to the next slide.
Oops.
Nope.
Nope. There
we go. So meaningful, again, selected from the 10 experiences that you have, but you can only select 3. All right. Now that you've selected these 3, the applicant must write a 300-character description, again, reflecting on the experiences, explain why it's meaningful, explain how it influenced them. That's not very many more characters than you had before. But again, when you were limited, don't use those SAT words, use short words, get in there, get out. But this is, again, what they want to see. They want to see a focus on the why the experiences were meaningful and how they affected you. If you're selecting only 3 of 10 things, they got to be top notch, right? So if you were Speaker of the House of SNMA, Vissy, that sounds very, very good. So you want to highlight that and say why it was meaningful. What leadership did you get? Running an entire HOD, getting feedback from people well above you and well below you. How did you manage that? How did it affect you in that time? That's great. You were the RD for Region 3 when the 60th was going to happen in Region 3. How did that experience affect you? Who'd you work with? That's where they want to see those meaningful, impactful things, as well as listing them under normal experiences.
And I would expand that because I understand this is AAMC language. It's a bit generic. I want to know why it was meaningful enough that it's going to differentiate you from another candidate to that program. Like, because if there were a bunch of other people, I don't know, walking through a protest or whatever, like, as a program director, how do I think of you and how do I differentiate you from another candidate based on that experience?
Yeah.
That's how I want you to take it to that next level, because it could come across as very generic if you're not otherwise applying it to the whole purpose for this application anyway, which is to convince them to accept you into their program.
All right, let's go to the next slide. We're going to keep it rolling because there's other types of experiences we got to get to.
All right, wait a minute.
There you go.
With this clicking.
Impactful. So
there we go.
There you go. So there is an opportunity underneath there for impactful experiences. Impactful experiences are opportunities to provide information about your background in life that's not captured somewhere else, right? So we'll go over these in the next slide, but a good one that I remember from the website is your first generation med school student, right? That's not really something you can put under your meaningful experiences, but it definitely impacted your life. Now, here's a caveat for everybody. These are intended for those who have overcome major challenges or obstacles, all right? Here's some data. In 2023, only 56% of residency applicants provided a response for this question, all right? Programs were instructed to not expect applicants to respond to this question. So if you're sitting at home right now, you're like, I could not figure out what to put for impactful, don't worry about it, all right? It's not going to weigh against you. It's not something you have to fill out. It's just if you have something that's, you feel has pushed you through to this point that doesn't fit in any of those nice 10 things, this is where you use that slot. But remember, 56% of your colleagues provided it, but that means 44 said, no, I'm good. So don't feel too bad.
Love, you know what this completely triggers for me? This completely triggers the affirmative action case where you are now restricted, of course, Unfortunately, from the schools are restricted, of course, from considering race and ethnicity, but you are allowed to disclose any disadvantage that you have in a personal statement. This is actually a portion of the application. It specifically says overcome major challenges or obstacles.
Yes.
So if you had any level of a disadvantage, and I'm not talking race and ethnicity, I'm talking socioeconomic, I'm talking disability, I'm talking family life, geographic, anything, guys, that needs to fall into this major challenges or obstacles. I look at this as our way to get information across that unfortunately politically right now is being stunted. And yes, I'm throwing that in there.
Oh, so Juliana asked, do you think first generation medical student counts? If you go to the next slide, Dr. Matthew. Look at this, straight from the AAMC again, because I want y'all to go to your friends and say, Dr. Anani and Dr. Matthews got it straight from the source. Family background, first generation to graduate college was the first thing they listed on their website. First generation to graduate med school, first thing. If you're not first generation, because your mom has a bachelor's, you know, you can use first generation med school because bachelor's only gets you so far. So you can feel free to write that in. Your parents, you know, they only have a bachelor's. They didn't know about step 1, step 2, or ERAS. So write that in. Financial background, again, low socioeconomic status, as we've said, low income family, community setting, right? Were you in a food desert? Were you on WIC, baby? My favorite was the checks because you can add sugar to the checks and like it worked. But the brown checks, don't sleep on those. Educational experiences. So did you have to go to after school programs? Did you have to get disability help, extra time, and then other life circumstances? Did you lose a family member? Every time someone needs to email me like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm late, it's usually backed up with, I lost a family member and things got rough. This is where you explain that roughness. Everyone wants to know, hey, how do I explain that I took 3 months off? Here you can kind of squeeze that in. Future Dr. Cameron asked.
Yeah, this is great. For those of us who had to fight all of our lives, how do we write about impactful experiences without it sounding like a sad sob story? So point blank, Dominique, on that, it is all about how you frame it and how you describe it in an objective manner. So you want to pull away from the emotional piece, which is exactly what it sounds like you're trying to do. And you want to frame, what does it mean to fight? Like that is also a very high level description. Was it in a family member situation? Was it at school, at work? Do you feel that you were discriminated against? But you need to kind of package it into a single experience. That's why they're using this word. So all your life, that's thousands, if not more, of experiences, right? You need to choose one and frame it. And you can choose several and frame it, but you do need to add some specificity and some structure, some like beginning and end to it. And what's insinuating in a question is maybe it's hard to define that. But there has to be a way that you can package it and you can describe it succinctly, so that we can reference it as we're talking with you. So I would say maybe a lifelong one, like a learning disability, that's perfectly packaged, right? It's easy to describe. It's not time limited. I get that. Maybe the difficulty of an interaction with a family member is also long term, but it's also quite distinct how I just described it, right? So it's all about really the packaging, how you present it.
And sob stories to me are always sob stories when the beginning and the end are sad. Remember, the end for you now is applying to a residency program. So we've already overcome it. So I don't expect tears. So it's just how you frame it.
Yeah. And again, if it's meaningful, if it's impactful in any sort of way, it's not just that it caused emotion. What have you learned from it? How are you better? And how will you be a better member of that residency community, potentially because of that experience, right? So it's not just about using it as an excuse. It's about using it as a proof point as to why that program director needs to accept you.
All right, we're gonna get to your next question after we go to the next slide. We're gonna do one slide and come back to the question. All right, so mastering experiences. I wanted to again bring the data from the website. This is straight from the program directors in 2023. Anytime you see for the rest of this slideshow, I say straight from the program directors. These are the program directors that did respond back to the AAMC survey, right? So I cannot say this is for every PD in the country, but for those who responded back. 70% of the 2023 PDs reported that meaningful experiences helped them get a better picture of the applicant. So again, very useful to get your background. And more than 80% surveyed used key characteristics and primary focus areas when they were selecting those candidates. So again, on that 3-tier picture we showed you with the purple categories, they highlighted and selected key characteristics and primary focus area to figure out what they wanted to look into and what type of students they wanted to select. And again, future Dr. Keshanova says, how deep can we share? AMCAS is a managed statement. I went in appropriately, of course, without crossing boundaries. But since this is more of a job application, should I hold back on some things? It's all about you. And I hate to say that. So certain things are legal to ask during a job interview. But I always tell people they're legal to ask, not illegal to be referenced, right? So if you bring it up, it's now out there. We can talk about it. Yeah. But if you feel like you're going to be awkward talking about it, probably shouldn't bring it up.
Yeah. But again, the point is not to just put it out there as information so that the people reviewing your application feel bad for you, or it can check the box that you're disadvantaged. You need to use each and every one of these as a proof point. Because I had this experience, I am a better applicant, and this is the quality that I earned. This is the skill set that I can now exercise well. I'm better at communication. I know how to manage time better because I had these difficulties as a child. It is completely to turn the head, basically, of the people reading your application. Do not list experiences just to show that you are at disadvantage. That is not the point. The point is to connect the dots and use every single word. Again, we've emphasized you don't have a lot of characters. You don't have a lot of words. Every single piece of information that you include in this application has to be a proof point as to why they should accept you.
Yes. All right. We're going to keep it moving. We're at 27 minutes.
We're moving.
All right. So now we switch from experiences. Again, we can always come back to this. We're going to hit geographic preferences. So gauging those. So there'll be a map. So just trust my words for now. Right now, you can select up to 3 U.S. Census Division preferences when selecting what type of programs you want to go to. And you have an opportunity to explain why from these 3 areas, right? So the map is, I think, divided into like 7 or 8. Again, we'll show it in a second. So you can say, I want Southwest, Northeast, and Midwest as my 3 preference areas, and put, because my mama lives there, my daddy lives here, and my girlfriend's family's from over here, whatever you want to write. However, there is an option for no preference. Like, I'm willing to go anywhere for anything, to any application place, to any residency job that will take me. The candidate then, after selecting a geographic preference, can now select a setting preference. All right. So urban, suburban, rural, or no preference. And then again, you have an opportunity to explain those with reasonings. And then you can select 5 hometowns, and you can indicate the setting as a hometown. Again, you don't have to do those things, but they are there for options, and you can mix and match. So you can say no geographic preference, but wherever I go, I want it to be rural and setting. And here's the map, all right? So wherever y'all are planning to apply, memorize these areas, okay? Again, you're going to have your hometown as background. So if you can select a hometown in your hometown section, you don't have to use your number 1 reasoning as your hometown. You can say other stuff, but obviously it's going to be based on that. Future Dr. Quarting says, would the meaningful experiences be a good place to address shortcomings in your application, e.g. failed at class? Maybe more impactful than meaningful?
Yeah, I think it's more impactful. I think maybe the personal statement, it depends on what your other experience. So all of these questions, God, they're excellent, but sometimes it's hard for us to commit to a single answer because it's really about the totality of your application. So what's the strengths of your other experiences? Of the 10, do you want to use the failed class as 1 of 10 versus maybe there's some way to quickly refer to it in your personal statement? Maybe you want to use it more as an impactful experience. But again, it's about connecting the dots to where you want to be and it being a proof point. So it being somewhere in the application but you better again be able to then take it past, oh, I failed this class. It's really also, what did you get out of it? Did you learn your study skills, a bit more? Did you, earn a mentor because of the help that you sought out because you failed that class? There could be anything coming from it, but you got to take it to that next step. But I agree with Dr. Anani. I think an impactful experience, but it could be meaningful. It depends on, really how you weight it as compared to your other experiences. And that's only something you can determine. Or the people who are reviewing your application for you.
And just so y'all know that T4D and SNMA and LMSA, we got hands everywhere. We have people who work in academics right now who are program directors, assistant program directors, who just are texting us advice about what we're telling y'all. And someone said, quote, they said, quote, definitely impactful or personal statement, not meaningful. That's from an APD. Just throwing that out there.
I love it. Thank you.
And to answer Fissy's question, this is going to seem evil, but I'm a comic book head. In the Avengers, the Hulk is the strongest there is. He's all strength, right? Nothing else characteristic-wise do we worry about. Captain America has leadership, some strength, some agility. Then you have Black Widow, who's all agility, all espionage, right? When people are people are making their class of future residents, they also want something similar, right? So some residencies want a ton of brainiacs. Some residencies want, I want a Hulk, I want a Captain America, I want a Black Widow. So you have to decide what kind of person you want to be to the application world, right? So for me, I'm not going to lie. If I was sitting in y'all's shoes, all 10 of mine would have been leadership. Student council president, class president, SNMA, church leader. At least 8 out of 10 would have been leadership. Y'all were going to understand that I'm coming to your program to be the best leader ever, and I'm going to leave as chief resident, which I did. And that's how I would have tailored mine. But some people may want to be more well-rounded. Like, yeah, I'm going to do research. I'm going to do this. I can do that. So it's up to you to decide how you want to present yourself, and just take it from there. Yeah. All right. Well, here's your map.
So what's the big deal about geographic and setting preferences that we learned, I think is aligned with this data that you showed here. So I'm gonna let you review this, and then we're gonna give the bottom line up front or at the end, bottom line at the end.
Yes. So programs were told to use all these preferences as pluses, which means if you apply to a California school, but all of your preferences were on the East Coast, California schools are not supposed to see that as a negative. Only the East Coast school is supposed to see those as pluses. All right. Everyone listen right now. This is what the AAMC says. What happens behind closed doors, I don't know, but this is what has been said and put out to every program. This is only supposed to be used for interview selection and not matching criteria. All right, I'm saying it again. Only for interview selection, not matching criteria. Now, obviously, you can't match the place you never interviewed at, but once you're past the interview scale, everyone's supposed to throw away this data of geographic preferences and now just look at you all as candidates. 48% of program respondents felt that, quote, applicants who show a preference for the region are more likely to accept an offer. So that makes the programs feel good because, again, programs want to fully match. So they're nervous too. 82% of PDs used geographic section during the admissions process. Again, people that thought they were going to interview, 82% of them selected from that geographic preference section. Throwing that out there. 59% reported that it helped them identify applicants whom they would have otherwise overlooked. So again, if you're not in that state, you don't go to that school, 59% of PDs said, oh yeah, they selected us as a preference, and I looked at them. 89% use it as a screening tool before more thorough application review. Again, Dr. Williams talked about, hey, I set these screens and then I look hard after these screens. This was one of them, 86%. That's a B plus, y'all. 58% use it to send interview invitations to every applicant who selected their region, which is crazy to me. It means more than half of more than half of PD said, if you selected my region, I sent you an interview. 79% included in a composite filter, again, to conduct holistic review. Again, that's known. 94% used it as part of the holistic application review to decide whom to interview. Again, they're just getting repetitive. 88% used it as a tiebreaker to help decide whom to interview. So if it was two applicants dead neck to neck, this is why geographic is a +1 and moved you up. And 70% used it to prepare for the interview. So again, why you selected the region, they're going to go back and read that and ask you about it during your interview. So don't fluff it, because 70% of those PDs are going to ask you about it again. So this is what everyone usually wants to know when we're talking about this. This is what programs are going to see based on what you select. All right. So if you put a preference for your program's division, again, let's just say Southwest, everyone in the Southwest division, if again provided by the applicant, will get a short explanation of why you prefer the Southwest division, if that's one of your three. If you select no division preference, then the program will see no preference and a short explanation why. I'll with the globe. If you are applying to a West Coast school and you only selected 3 East Coast divisions, that West Coast school will see no information displayed. It'll just be a blank box. And if you skip this section, it will just be a blank box. That's why it's not supposed to be a negative, because the programs can't tell if you just skipped it or if you didn't select them. But everyone you selected is going to know. It's like a nice thumbs up, wink, wink to them. But if they didn't get a wink, they're not going to know. If you ask me, some PDs are going to be smart and figure out that data, but that's why so many just use it. So consider these points again in your 2023 application. Most applicants indicated a preference, so I would probably recommend not skipping that. Approximately 1/3 of applicants indicated no geographic preference, 90% of whom provided a detailed explanation. So if you are going to jump on that train and select no preference, have a very good reason why, because everyone knows that everyone wants to be somewhere. Mm-hmm. Approximately 96% of geographic preferences were paired with a description of the chosen geographic preference. So again, one of those, you get 3, 96% of people went to one of those 3. For setting preferences, most applicants, again, indicated as preference. 85% of setting preferences were paired with a short essay describing the preference. Again, so do not skip that section. It's very important. If you're going to select something, write about it. And if those applicants reported no setting preference, about 80% wrote a short essay describing why they did not want no preference. Again, if I'm a small rural program and you're saying no preference, I need to know why you don't care between rural and urban.
Yeah.
What's your thought behind that?
And guys, point blank, we were told, at least in our prior discussions, it is actually better, even with the data, even if you provide descriptions, it's actually better to list a preference as opposed to no preference. Like point blank, like, yes, there's an option there for no preference, but either if it's not the region, if it's skipped or it's looking like you didn't choose that, and they're making decisions about the interview process, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage. Choose a preference, because I also find it very hard, Love, I don't know about you, but to describe why you have no preference, that's a very hard piece to justify, versus being able to justify one over another. That saying you have absolutely no preference of where to live doesn't really bode with any sort of confidence that you know enough about how you're going to choose a program if they were to actually like give you an option. And so you need to have some committed answer there, like, yes. which is hard.
I can kind of get no setting preference. Like if I'm just like, I want to move to New York because I know that 80% of physicians who go to residency in New York stay in New York, and I want to stay in New York. So I don't care if it's urban, suburban, whatever. I can kind of understand that as a response, but not knowing what state you want to go to, yeah, you're just playing. And that's why
it's region.
Right? It's multiple states.
So guys, just do not default to no preference.
Yes.
Do not. It comes across as just a lot of unknown.
Yes.
And the question you have to have the most advantage possible.
And the question in the chat says, can you select more than one? And the answer is yes. You can select up to 3 U.S. Census Division preferences. So you can do that. So yes, again, try
New York. Wait, let's go back to the
go back to the map.
Yeah,
I think New York will probably just be one by itself.
I think
Jersey. So you might.
Oh no, look, Jersey's separate. Oh no, with New York.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
So you do mid-Atlantic one, and then, you know, if you don't mind the DMV, you throw in South Atlantic. That's crazy. DMV is all the way down to Florida.
All
Like,
of
but yeah, you can definitely just choose one or two if you want to. If you just choose one, that's fine. For me, I'm using all three, right? Like I'm using the entire coast if it's me, because it's not going to hurt you. I'd use the entire coast.
It helps you more than it hurts to
Yes.
use all three, as opposed to it could look like you don't prefer that region or you skip the answer. And again, you don't want that wishy-washy unknown on your
Oh,
application.
there you go. New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. So I would use
So
Mid-Atlantic
then you got to
one,
choose
New
the
England
New
two,
England.
yeah, and then South Atlantic three. That'd be my three.
Yep.
And again, y'all saw the data. More than half of PDs send interviews to everyone who selected their region, which is just mind-boggling.
Yep.
All right. Now here's the big one. Signaling. All right. Signaling are virtual tokens that the applicants get to give programs to show genuine interest. To me, signaling was created to replace that old email we used to send. Dear program, you are my number one program. I
really
love you
like
so much.
you.
Yeah, this is supposed to get rid of that. Now, only participating programs in a participating specialty can get a signal. Don't worry, like every specialty basically is under signaling, but the program still also has to buy into that. So just because your EM is down for signaling doesn't mean the program you're applying to is down for signaling. But again, the vast majority participate because this helps them too. I heard this comment a lot, so we wanted to make sure it was a bullet point here. Geographic preferencing is not signaling. Those are two separate things you get to do. So for Tara, we're gonna say Tara. If she wants that New York, Jersey, Connecticut, she can choose those two geographic preferences and then signal specific people in those places. And they're going to know, all right, if she chose New York and she chose urban, then working in the Bronx makes sense, right? So this is why people are going to, again, put together all three pieces. Again, signaling is only supposed to be used to help with the interview process, not to be used in the ranking process. And again, we put in parentheses allegedly, because I don't, again, human factor, I know what they want people to do.
Why wouldn't people not do?
Again, this is what they say. Because again, once people get through the interviews, you're supposed to start all over from scratch. That's the holistic process. But again, it's hard to remove all these little pieces. So again, it's not supposed to be used for ranking, but we shall move forward. Here are all the specialties. If it's hard to see, again, you know what website to go to. Anesthesiology, we'll talk about this. You get 15 total signals, 5 gold, 10 silver. Child neurology and neurodevelopment disabilities, you get 3. Dermatology, y'all are special, right? You get 28 signals, but only 3 are gold, which is trifling. And 25 are silver. Radiology, diagnostic, you get 6 and 6, gold and silver. Emergency medicine, you get 7, all 1. Families 5, general medicine's 5. I'm just not going to read the whole list. I'm going to highlight a couple more things. Neurological surgery, neurosurgery, you get 25. OB, you get 3 gold, 15 silver. I know a lot of y'all want to do OB. They're making you be very specific about where you want to go. Ortho is 30. ENT is 25. The ones with high numbers are specialties where they know you can have the best scores in the world. If you apply in ortho, you still applying to 50 programs, right? So they still made that number 30 to help them cut it down. But for like, I'll use EM, I'll use my own specialty. You only need like 10 interviews to really match an EM. So they really know you only need 7, and that's why you get 7 signals. But derm, yeah, y'all gonna need 28. OB, you're gonna need 18. In fact, I think OB should go up. Maybe it'll go up next year in their own specialty.
I'm just upset family and psych only get 5 each. Like I just find that disturbing.
But that's what the specialties decided they needed.
I'm calling somebody.
Y'all can go up next year.
Well, you know what though? What I just realized though, this is like thinking of the process we went through. We, of course, did not have signaling. We're old. We did this on paper. I did the, no, but
I had a computer.
I had a computer. But we, in no way, when we were submitting ERAS, had any sort of ability to highlight programs that we were interested in, other than checking the box, send my application there. The only way we could signal in any way was our rank list. Now, you guys, signaling is as you're applying, you're essentially doing kind of groupings. It's not a rank list. You're not telling them what your number one is. But for those with gold, you are definitely saying, you are my favorite at the beginning of the application process. Remember, at the end, though, you will submit a rank list still. But what's kind of interesting is the signaling may influence the way that the program then ranks you. So you really need to be thinking, probably more than either of us did, right, Love?
Yeah.
About like which program you may want to go to. And you haven't even interviewed yet. Like that's what is kind of, I don't know that I would have.
It works in their favor. And
it works in the program's favor. It's
yes. Tara, you ask an excellent question. And I'm going to come back to it because I didn't see a definitive answer on the AAMC website, but I promise you I'll come back to it. Should signals be the same as the 3 geographic region? What if there's a program you still want, but wasn't in the 3 geographic? So you signal? Yes, if you want to. Like if that's where you want to go. But again, why it wasn't in your geographic region? Yeah, if you want to go there, like why is it not? So let's use the classic example. You're from California, but Harvard is Harvard, right? I mean, there's no shade in signaling Harvard, but y'all don't waste these signals on like the long shot places. So again, if you want to tie in to improve your chances at every single level, your signals should be within the regions. If again, you want to highlight it. All right.
Dr. Winters text Love if you agree with that, but I agree with that.
All right, let's go to the next one. And I'll come back to that question again about dual applying because I think it's in here. Signals cannot be sent. Yes, here's the next point. This is on the website, and this is how I interpret it. Signals cannot be sent to a program track, but go to the whole institution for a specialty. And the example that was on the website is if I'm applying to anesthesia prelim at Harvard and anesthesia categorical, do I have to signal both? And the answer was no. You just signal Harvard and both of them get pulled in. So they didn't specifically say dual applying to 2 specialties, but I would want to believe that should still hold. If you signal, again, I'm just keep saying Harvard. You signal Harvard for EM and you apply Harvard for family, that signal is going to pull in both of them. And again, I normally tell people don't dual apply at the same place. Yeah. But in different specialties, you should get 2 different numbers because some of them have gold and silver and others don't. So it's not fair to, let's say you apply EM and you apply OB, they're not going to give you the 7 EM tokens and none of them are gold. So you should get numbers for both. Applicants are advised to use signaling to provide insight into qualities, skills, and interests they'll bring to a program. Sending a signal resulted in a higher probability of interview invitation for all participating specialties. All of them. That whole list, everyone said if you signaled me, you were more likely to get an interview. That's just a straight up fact. You cannot deny it. All right, let's go to the next one. So more signaling data. 75% of program directors agreed that program signals helped them identify applicants they would have overlooked. So again, this is like a, hey, look at me. And they actually looked. Program directors reported using applicant signals during various stages of the process. 88% use it as a screening tool before they even looked at your application. 88% said if you didn't signal me, I didn't even get to your application. 61% sent interview invitations to every applicant who signaled their program. 61%.
Who are these programs?
I don't know, but they had time on their hands. Find them. Nope. Find them and apply. 78% used it to include in a composite filter for holistic review. 91% used it as a part of a holistic review application to decide again who to interview. 86% use it as a tiebreaker to decide who to interview. And 64% during the interview, use it during the interview to learn why an applicant signaled them and said like, hey, why us, blah, blah, blah. There's a question in the chat. Could signaling work against us though? For example, if you don't signal Harvard due to the sheer number of people that are probably signaling it, but it's a program you really want to interview at, would it look bad? So again, this is more for the program to see you. So this is the example that was told to me. You are the president of SNMA and LMSA in the same year, and you got a perfect 250 score. You ain't got to signal nobody, right? Or step 2 score. You don't have to signal anybody. You're going to get an interview every single place. For the people who need to jump up and say, hey, look at me, this is where signaling really boosted you. So it's not going to hurt because they're going to say, well, maybe they use it for somewhere else. Maybe we're number 4 on their list. But if they really want you, they're still going to interview you because you were that stellar of an applicant. So again, it should be a boost up rather than a tear down, depending on how your application is. What do you think, Dr. Matthews?
I'd still signal. I don't know. I just see this as, I'm trying to think of it from a program director's view. That's why, Dr. Winters, you need to call in. I think if you don't signal and there's a significant volume of people applying, yes, you may have that ridiculous 250 and have been the president of everything. But if you haven't told them that you have specific interests, why would they even keep you in that group to then look through? Like, that's where it being a screening tool for a more thorough review. I don't know that there's like a lot of qualities that would overcompensate for the fact that you didn't tell them that you're interested in them. Just because you have high scores doesn't mean you're really interested in them. Just because you're applying to them doesn't mean you're also really interested in them as well.
For everyone watching, here's the question I'd throw back at y'all. What's a good reason not to signal the top 5 places you would ever want to go to residency? Right? Like, if Harvard is your number 1 and you got an interview at Harvard and you would rank them number 1, then go ahead and signal Harvard, no matter what you think about it. But, you know, there are places who you can see 61% are just going to send an interview to everyone who signals. So now you're in that giant pool. These specialties chose these number of signals because that theoretically should be the number of places you have to interview at to match. So again, they know you can't signal everyone. Some programs only had 3. People aren't going to hold it against you, but the programs that have 30, I mean, if I'm not in your top 30, I mean, come on, like that's we're going through it. But yeah, if there's 7, all right, I'm EM. I know you only get 7. I'm not one of them. Maybe I'm 8. I might give you a shot. So descending long shot signals to a specialty that's not as competitive as other specialties still seen as a waste, like signaling Columbia Family Med or Harvard IM primary care track. Again, if you want it, you in that atmosphere.
It doesn't matter if it's a long shot or not. The whole point is exactly as it's called. It's a signal. You are giving them information, regardless of whether it's a long shot or not. You're giving them additional information that says, hey, look at me. It doesn't matter.
Yep. I would just keep a very balanced list. If you only have 7 and you signal all long shots, I mean, yeah. And this is what programs see. So if a program that has the tiers, but for your program, if you're a single tier participating program and someone signaled you tier 1, you're going to get a single program badge. It's going to come in. That's for like EM, where we only have 1 tier. It's going to say signaled. If you're OB that has gold and silver, if someone signaled that program, a gold will come in or a silver come in. If you signaled a different program, no information will be displayed. And if you skipped the signaling process, no information will be displayed. So again, theoretically, if a program gets no information will be displayed, it shouldn't be a negative theoretically. But I mean, they're going to know that you didn't signal them, but they're not going to know if you skipped or didn't skip.
Applications should be looked at as a way to push favorable information on your behalf. And you should think of it as, I'd rather have favorable information there than no information at all, right? So it's not necessarily that they're looking at you signaling someone else negatively because it says no information will be displayed, but you don't have that other positive piece to your application when plenty of others will. So, definitely do not skip, but definitely be serious about who you signal. And don't worry about whether or not it's a long shot. I think that's still important.
Signaling is a +1 to your application. 0 + 1 is 1. 0 + 0 is 0. You want to be a 0 or a 1.
It's a much more mathematical way of saying what I just said.
Let's hit the next slide. I think we're getting to the end. We're going to take all your questions. I'm going to wrap it up really quickly. We'll stick around and ask y'all. So these are things that programs allegedly are prohibited from doing with this information. So for geographic preferences, programs are prohibited from asking an applicant their geographic preference when they did not provide one. They're prohibited for asking an applicant if they've indicated a preference for another division. They're prohibited from asking the applicant their division preferences when there was none indicated. and they're prohibited for using geographic preference information when creating or finalizing the program's rank order list or the preference list created during SOAP. Again, this bottom one is a little hard, but it's on there. That's all I can say. From signaling, they're prohibited from disclosing the identity of an applicant who has sent your program a signal. Cannot do that. They're prohibited from asking the applicant to which programs they sent signals. Can't do that. Prohibited from asking applicants why they chose not to signal their program during the residency and fellowship process. And again, prohibited from using the program signal information when creating the final rank list. But I mean, again, it's hard. But if any of these things happen, y'all know those programs effed up, shouldn't have done it. Don't trust the process. Really consider that's where you want to go because they clearly don't follow the rules. All right, so Q&A, and then we'll go first the question in chat. Would signaling a program that is outside of your geographic preference be taken negatively or favorably? Is it going to depend on what you write for your reason for the signal, right? So I'm going to get that you did not signal my geographic preference, but you want to come here. So as long as you write a really good story, maybe I'll just assume you skip that section as a whole. But it's all going to come down to what you write in that area.
The justification part, again, with limited character space, y'all. So that's the hard part here. But the justification, your reasoning is extremely important here. So I would definitely work with your mentors, work with whoever's reviewing your statements and your ERAS to walk through that reasoning to make sure that it makes sense. And is as strong as possible, to be honest. I'm nervous about those justification points.
But back to the math, right? Yes, 0 plus 1 is 1, but 0 plus 1 plus 1 is 2, right? So that person who did both, it may be a little higher, maybe a little step up. So it's not favorable. It's just not as good as it could be.
Yeah.
Any other questions? I know we got 28 people watching on the YouTube. Y'all can ask us anything over the last 3 days, anything coming up. We do have specialty panels we'll get to. Oh, go ahead.
Yep. No, I was trying to see if there was another question.
Okay. One just popped up. Would it be seen as being too much and inappropriate if I signaled and sent those hi, your program is number 1? So I have asked about this behind scenes to people, and the answer I got, yes, because it is a lot. You already got your preference, you got your signal. We know you want to come here. Then bombarded with so much information, those emails rarely make it to them. And unless it has some life-altering information in it, don't do it. So to me, I describe this as the thirsty person in the club. Do you want to be thirsty? No. But if you're alone, you shoot your shot. So if you don't have any interviews and you out there solo, you got one interview and you're scared, send that email. But if the interviews are rolling in, just chill out. And these emails never really work until the end of the season anyways, because again, everyone's so inundated at the beginning. So you really have until, I normally tell my mentees, Thanksgiving/early December to really decide if you need to pull the trigger on my number 1 emails. You got time. Yeah, Tosin, they are discouraged. I do not use them unless you have to. The best love letter is if you can hobnob with the program for some reason, like you're just there on your way, you met the program director, you could just say it, but the emails either get lost or just get buried under like a lot of other bureaucratic stuff.
Great question from Antonio. Do you signal programs that you have done aways at? Yes, because how else are they supposed to know that you got a lot out of it, that you're still interested in them? Some aways are used just to get experiences and the like. They're not always a positive one. So definitely signal where you've done aways as well.
Yeah, especially if you haven't had a chance to like talk with that person one-on-one, that program director or that chair, Mr. Chair. You want to tell them like, hey, the signal. Now, if you have lunch with them 3 times a day on your away, and you can be like, yo, you my number 1, I only got 5 of these. Just know you can try that sale, but again, everyone takes everyone's word for a grain of salt in this process. So if you got it, use it.
And remember, if you have a personal connect, that doesn't mean that personal connection is also then going to be distributed amongst the rest of the selection committee, right?
Yes.
And some may be really particular and sticklers for wanting to see signals. at least my program, everybody voted. And yes, we would speak up in favor and everything, but everybody had their own criteria that they were evaluating. And so you never know who in that selection committee might really want to see that signal as opposed to a personal relationship you have.
Exactly. Thank you for liking my analogies. And to Dominique's question, if we don't have any exciting hobbies, should we forego including hobbies? Yes. Again,
Yes.
I'm an avid gamer, love my PS5. In this day and age of ERAS, I would not include it anywhere unless, no, I wouldn't.
You have 10 total. If it is not a hobby that is a proof point for why you should be accepted there, it's not worth accepting, including.
Yeah, if you like to cook like everyone likes to do, you better be on Food Network or Rising Stars or something like that. Not just I like to cook.
Why is it relevant for you being a resident? Like, I mean, again, why is it relevant?
Yes. Yes, I wish Ortho could do all extra signals to everybody else. Are there any examples / templates for how to format responses for regional preferences? So if I'm going to be honest, I'm going to say no, right? We only had 2 years of this and it was all supplemental and now it's fully in. So this is going to sound corny. Just say it from the heart. Why you want to go there, even if it's a giant region, like let's say all that South Atlantic, but you really just want to go to the Carolinas, just put like, I really want to get to the Carolinas. This region's the closest. I can get to my family the easiest via plane, train, or automobile. That's just say it like that.
But yeah, and family, city that you're used to, support systems, all of that is completely legitimate reason. So there's it. I agree. Just be as honest as possible and make sure it's something that you feel comfortable with discussing, perhaps in an interview and the like, because they're gonna ask why. They can ask why. They can't ask why not them. They can't ask who else, but they can ask why.
And that was on the slides, right? I think 70 or 80% of people asked during the interview, why did you signal us? Why did you choose our geographic preference? So they want to know.
Yep.
So even if you couldn't get all the characters out, you can extend it at that time.
Yep. All right, y'all. We are coming up on the end. What I wanted to share with you are 2 opportunities. Tammy, if you don't mind sharing the screen again. The point that I raised, and Tyra, we'll get to your question. The point that I raised about signaling is done before you even get the interview. So many of us, that's where you get to know the program, where you get to really feel, is this somewhere where I feel connected, where I'll feel comfortable. Now, thankfully, a lot of schools are giving you additional opportunity as part of the application timeline, meaning upcoming in September here, to get to know residency programs and to meet people virtually. So please take a screenshot of this. Harvard is hosting a showcase on September 9th across all of their residency programs. We also just got notification tonight. Prisma Health with the University of South Carolina School of Medicine, Greenville. They are hosting 2 open houses. I have a bunch of information on this. You guys can also email us, send a message on social media, wherever you can find us, to get the registration links and everything. But the more we get of this, we'll also post on social media. But guys, please attend these because, again, if you want to make educated decisions about your signaling, you have to gather information about these programs. And the best way to do that is through these open houses.
And to answer the question, can I combine experiences? Yes, right? If you're going to list your role as family medicine president, you can put things that you did underneath that role in that section, and you can throw in there volunteering for free pap smears underneath that. So yes, you can combine. You only get 10.
All right. So we have had 3 amazing webinars. I want to thank Dr. Anani, Dr. Winters, Dr. Clark for joining me on these. Hopefully you guys got a lot out of them. They are recorded and on SNMA's YouTube channel, so we can definitely make sure that others who haven't been able to watch live can get the information. We do want to advertise. We have a set of full specialty specific panels. And I say full, but meaning because these are full events for each of them. But unfortunately, we don't have every specialty represented. But these are all next week where you can really dig into a specific field. We've got a lot of program directors and faculty and fellows involved on each of these. The surgery evening is going to be particularly interested. We're going a little bit longer. That'll probably run about an hour and a half. And we're really bringing together a good number of surgeons to have a good conversation with you. These are limited as far as who we would like to participate in there. So if you have not yet signed up to be paired for the Road to Residency mock interviews, please do so. This is specifically for SNMA and LMSA graduating students. Please provide your membership number, and then you'll be able to participate in these events. But more information to be emailed out, including the actual registration links for each of these Zoom webinars.
And Mr. SNMA chair, I promise we're working on psych. We're going to try. We're going to pair you if we can't, but we're going to try to get that panel.
I know psych was hard this year. I'm so sorry.
And to Tosin's question, yes, they are great conversation starters with hobbies, but again, don't use one of those 10 spots. If you can integrate it in the 10, that's fine. Or if you can put it in your personal statement, that's fine. But trust me, it's the number one icebreaker. People will just ask you during the interview, so what do you like to do for fun? And then you can throw out your hobbies at that standpoint. But you don't have to take up one of your 10.
Again, make decisions based on the totality of your application. If you are only coming up with 9 experiences, sure, go throw a hobby in there. Why not use one? But if you have other 10 meaningful experiences, don't use a hobby to replace one of them.
SK, I remember SK from ours. Is there a place to submit for personal statements for review? So we had to talk about it, but for right now, if you go to the T4D page, usually if you just hit up for a mentor, like, hey, I have a personal statement I want to review, we will link you with someone. So you can hit up my DMs. That's my IG right there. I'll give you my email. I read personal statements. I just said that out loud. That's crazy. And for Luna,
for all your free time this fall.
I'll give it out to other people.
Specialty panel registration links will be emailed out to registered SNMA and LMSA students for the Road to Residency program.
Yes. If you're not registered, try to find a buddy and go to their house or do something, or keep your eye out. Some of the programs tend to open them up depending on who sits on them.
To open that up, but it is meant to be a member benefit for SNMA and LMSA members.
So find a buddy or become a member.
There we go. All right, everybody. Thank you again for participating these past couple of weeks, and we will see you next week during the panels.
If you don't have an Instagram, send it to Dr. Matthews' Twitter at Dr. Cam, and she'll send it to me anyways.
Actually, I deleted X. I'm not using it.
All right, SK. I'm about to put hey, do you have a Twitter? What do you have, my guy? You know what? Here, I'm just putting this in the chat right now. If you want to, this is to show the world that I love SMA, LMSA.
But too good.
Boom. That is my email in the chat. There, you got it. Use it.
Love it. All right, y'all. Have a great night. Thank you so much for joining.
Bye.
Bye-bye.